Well, here we are one more time.
We haven't even introduced our guest and we're already laughing.
I know, we tend to do this. We talk and talk and talk.
Do I need an introduction? I mean, basically,
No.
I'm a part of the fixture.
I have it written right here. Our guest today needs no introduction.
Oh, okay.
The one and only Tate Donovan.
And yet, you
Jimmy Cooper.
Oh, did I screw it up?
No, I just stepped on the Tate Donovan. So just in case anybody wasn't listening, it's Tate, T-A-T-E. Donovan.
Tater tot. So guys, we're number 39, The Gamble with Tate Donovan. Why is that so funny, Tater tot? You've never heard that before? Tate's heard that his whole life.
Yeah,
really?
I have. Yeah, tater tot, potato.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, sure. You can call me tater tot.
Yeah,
no problem. Do you even know what a tater tot is? I mean, do they still have tater tots? Okay.
All right. Okay, take a guess.
I didn't
Just
know.
really quick. How old do you think I am?
I don't know, 22? You're out of college, so I know you're out of,
I'm 24, Tate.
20. Okay, well, okay.
I'm not a
close.
child. I know what a tater tot is.
Well, I know, but you weren't the generation. We grew up on tater tots, and you guys, had organically grown potatoes that were made, with love by your mom.
Yeah, when I was young, we only shopped at Whole Foods. We had our neighborhood.
We did,
Whole
just because it was
Foods.
so close. It was the best.
Yeah, there are no tater tots in Whole Foods.
I actually do crave tater tots quite a bit. So
I can't remember the last time I had a tater tot.
they have them at Finney's here in Ventura, CG. Remember?
Oh, there's a Finney's here in Laguna.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So let's get into this. There's Tate doesn't even know. I mean, I asked him to watch The Gamble. There's a reason I asked him to watch The Gamble, because the first time we did this on Welcome to the OC Bitches with she's laughing with Rachel, this is a confession.
Bad.
This is a confession.
It was bad.
It was our
Mom, I couldn't even listen to it.
So yes, this is a confession. When we agreed to do this podcast, I prefer to have a lot of preparation. I spend a lot of time. I do a lot of research, and this was
you do your homework.
But this was the first time we were doing it, and we had no plan. It was just Rachel, me, and Peter. Even though it was the third episode that we aired, it was not. It was just the first one we recorded for the podcast. And if you go back, I realized I had no idea what I was doing. I was stuttering. It was very awkward. And if you are brave enough to go into the Reddit and find out what people were saying,
they were shitting on you, weren't they?
Really? Oh my God, that's terrible.
Okay, honestly, it was bad.
Yeah. Did you listen?
Yes, I tried. I skipped through a lot of it because you guys were just talking about random stuff. Like, you barely even talked about the episode. You touched on like 2 things, and then you were just talking about memories of the OC and how you get so emotional watching it.
But hold on a second. Here's the reason.
That's Peter's fault.
Peter is very nostalgic in that episode, I will say.
I would like to say, instead of using the word bad, it just wasn't. It just evolved into something else. Okay, instead, it wasn't bad. We just had a conversation. We did not talk about the episode.
You did your best. You tried your hardest.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it sort of was one of the first podcasts about a television show as far as I was concerned. And so you guys were learning as you went. And I think, it's whenever I run across somebody who, it was like, oh my God, Jimmy Cooper, I love that show, blah, blah, blah. I always say, have you listened to the podcast about it? And they're like, a lot of them have been like, oh my God, yeah, I love it. I'm a super fan. And if they are super fans, I tell them about it. They're it's if you're a fan, it's a good show. You know
what? And I think what's interesting is that it was the Office ladies that started kind of, other people had done podcasts, but they did it. And also Scrubs. And I think we were kind of like, there were a few more before us, but it was right at about that time where we were kind of like the third big one, I guess. There's probably more. I'm always wrong. But it was, some people wanted it to be just about the episodes, and some people wanted it to be behind the scenes. And we tried different formats as we went along. And for those of you who stuck by from the very, very beginning, thanks for sticking by. But I do have some comments, right? Tate, one of the things that CG and I do is, this is a fan motivated podcast where we go to the fans, we ask them questions, and we get their opinions. Because one of the things that I learned is that what Rachel and I lacked, or just actors in general, we don't necessarily talk about our characters like real people. We don't talk about Julie and Jimmy the way fans do, where they have discussions about what they did. And it took me some time to learn how to do that. And I do that now because I'm a fan. But it was, can I just say or read a few comments?
I didn't read any of the comments, and I'm looking at them right now.
They're pretty bad. Okay, they're not bad. I found it to be really interesting, and this is what kind of motivates our conversation.
Oh, I can't wait.
Can I read the first? Can I read the first one, Mom? From Caps Love It on YouTube. They said, "I love this, but I hope Melinda becomes more aware of her repeating stories."
Which I did. I would repeat myself a lot. Okay. Here's one from Angela Kaizo. I can't say all that. You gals get so many awkward moments on video chat. Reminds me of what I'm like. It's mostly about awkward cutting in whilst chatting. But yeah, I'm the same. It's hard to figure out, but I'm surprised you as actresses. But I guess it doesn't get easier for anyone.
I could see that she has an awkward time, that woman, expressing herself.
Right. So yes, Riley Owens wrote, I absolutely love Peter, and it's nice to see him, but I wish we could have spent more time talking about the episode and your thoughts on that episode. I hope as more of the OG cast members come on and stop by, that it's not just catching up and going into your own conversations. This is one of my favorite episodes, but it was barely talked about it. I did see Rachel. She tried to kind of get the conversation back to the episode itself. So we are going to talk about the episode today.
So we're cutting the crap today.
Very good.
Cut the crap.
Well, then there was one more from Helena Bull on YouTube. And she said, Melinda, hope you can convince your daughter to participate in one of these episodes. Your TikToks are hilarious.
Well, and you know what? Your dream.
Look how far we've come. Look how far we've come, Helena.
Okay, kids. So I'm going to read the synopsis for those who didn't take the time to watch the episode. Tate did. CG did.
That's right.
For number 39 in the countdown, The Gamble.
This episode kicks off with Sandy visiting Ryan in juvie again. Deja vu from the pilot. The arson charges have been dropped, but Ryan's staying in juvie due to that whole stole a car thing. Cranky and grounded Seth tries to sneak off to visit him, dragging Kirsten along since she can't endure the Real Newpsies of Newport gals planning casino night anymore. In juvie, Ryan defends Kirsten from a flirty inmate. So back home, Sandy finds Ryan and Seth playing video games, sparking a what are we going to do with this kid moment with Kirsten. Julie runs her mouth at the coffee shop with Sandy at earshot, leading to a delightful verbal whipping and learning from Jimmy that Kirsten is footing the bills. Ryan's mom, Dawn, makes a dramatic entrance claiming she's cleaned up, but Ryan is skeptical. The Vegas night is a whirlwind. Dawn turns into a spectacle as a drunk blackjack whiz. Julie won't shut up about the $100K. Marissa pines for Luke and Ryan, and Stanley sitter Seth becomes Summer's lucky charm at the craps table. Dawn decides to leave Ryan with the Cohens, admitting Kirsten's the better mom. Ha ha! Ryan, with a mix of relief and sadness, watches his mom leave and embraces his new life with the Cohens. That wasn't funny. I just wrote it. It's okay.
Yeah, you normally do something fun.
Wow, did you write that? That's pretty impressive, actually, that you wrote it.
She normally writes it with like really little innuendos. Like she'll write it like a pirate and with all these like
an alien or something. Themes. I don't know. Just I try to stick with the theme, and I couldn't figure one out this time. So I just thought we should be clear.
The gambling
theme. But the other thing is, one of the reasons I asked you to be on this is that, you know, first of all, Jimmy's a real piece of work. I know.
He is. You know, it's really funny about this episode. I was reminded when I saw that scene where I'm eating potato chips and watching basketball, and you come in, and this woman came up to me in the airport soon after that aired. And she was like, your character pisses me off, or she disgusts me. That's what she said. And I was like, I was expecting her to, say something nice, like usually. And then she's like, to sit there eating potato chips while, and have Kirsten, your neighbor, your friend, pay your bills, $100,000. I just found that just horrible. Like, why aren't you working? Why aren't you doing something? And she was just like laid into me. And it was really interesting because I hadn't thought about it. I was just like, I get the lines and I thought it was great actually, because I was like, oh, I love watching basketball. It's one of my favorite things to do. And that would be me,
Well, so Tate, we've had this conversation for years about how, I think the way the characters ended up coming off to the audience isn't necessarily the way because we don't play characters as villains. Julie fulfilled a villain role, but you're so likable. Jimmy was just doing what he needed to do. And we don't think of it. And I remember when you said, "Hey, my sister told the story about your sister saying that you're the worst dad in the world," and you were like, "I am," because you and that's what makes it so believable. It's like, wait a second, people go through life doing what they think they need to do in the moment, not totally fully understanding the consequences of their actions.
I was going to say, is it time to get into our little surprise for Tate?
Well, I mean, we just have Jimmy comments, so it's an interesting yes, CG. But I mixed in because how do I say, it is sometimes painful to listen to what people say, but they're just words too, and they're just characters. We don't take these things personally, right? So Arcade Kangaroo on Reddit said, the character is a testament to how likable Tate Donovan is. He was an awful person, but it is so hard not to root for him, which I think this person gets it, right?
That's the nicest thing anyone could say. Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, it's okay. So CG, read the second one.
Jimmy is an amazing character because we all at some point in our lives come across someone like him. He's not a bad person at heart, but he's also a scumbag. He just never was able to put aside his selfishness. All in all, I like his cool dad conversations with Marissa and his friendship with Sandy. Sandy's character also got hit after his departure. So you're nice, but you're also a scumbag.
Yeah. Well, I feel very clueless in this episode. Like, certainly when I just walk in and Summer's in her bra.
Okay, and that scene.
I mean, can we talk about that?
Sorry. And also Summer being like, yeah, I hope he walks in on me. Like your dad's hot or something. She says something like that.
Oh, does she? Oh, I didn't know.
Something Why is your dad in a robe all the time? What's up with that? There were some great moments. Yeah.
I wrote down so many one-liners from this episode. There were so many.
There were a lot of people who commented on that when obviously this is when, Seth is upset and then they're going to go visit Ryan and such. But there was a lot, and I didn't need to write it all down here, but there were a lot of people who thought that was such an interesting thing that Jimmy just opens the door, doesn't knock, and of course this is like, let's get Rachel Bilson in a bra to have this moment where Seth is like, and you're like, yeah, sorry, whatever, you can walk off. And I guess those moments still to this day people are talking about.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's just the once again, just the clueless parent of the year award. You know what I mean? It's just like they were setting me up for the ultimate, terrible parent move where I go to Hawaii, but this is the beginning of it.
Well, somebody actually did say here, and it's just one of these J4321J, a name like that says, yeah, he's pretty much one of the worst TV dads ever, especially because he's on a show with Sandy Cohen, who's the best dad in TV. Oh,
yeah. I mean, that's true. It was so true. I mean, rewatching it, I was just like, God, he's just so good. He's such a great dad. They have such a good relationship. I mean, I even love the moments where Seth walks in the kitchen early on and he's like, he's just ripping into his mom or whatever, and he just walks off. Yeah. And he's like, hey, get back here and apologize. And of course, he doesn't apologize. And that is so like living with a teenager. It's hilarious.
Right. Speaking of Seth, I want to comment on when Seth is like walking into your home to get Marissa, Jimmy goes, oh, how's your mom? And he goes, married.
So good.
And Jimmy goes, okay.
I do want to say that these earlier episodes really had, as we're doing this countdown, CG, God, the motorcycles in Dana Point are strong. I can hear those. But anyway.
Yeah. Are you dating a guy with a Harley or something like that? What's going on over there?
Don't get me started on that.
Hells Angels or something like that?
Go listen to some previous episodes, Tate. I've been going through it with the men of Orange County.
Okay,
actually, just a singular one. Yeah. Okay. How dare you? You really struck a nerve just now.
I'm sorry. I'm just Jimmy. I'm just being Jimmy.
You're just being awful bad
Clueless
Jimmy.
and hurting people cluelessly.
I was introduced to Blissy a few years ago doing this podcast, and since day one, I have not been without my Blissy silk pillowcases. I even travel with them because seriously, you will get better sleep, hair, and skin with Blissy's award-winning 100% mulberry silk pillowcases. If you haven't used silk, you must. Blissy's silk is the best thing you can do for your hair and skin. It reduces frizz, tangles, and even helps prevent thinning, which is a real thing for me. It can also help reduce blemishes and the appearance of fine lines. Imagine waking up without sleep creases and knotted hair. I do. Also, don't be fooled by dupes claiming satin is an alternative to silk. It's not. Blissy pillowcases are also hypoallergenic and super easy to wash and maintain. Plus, they have a hidden zipper that keeps your pillowcase nice and secure. Blissy is the perfect gift for everyone in your life. And for the little ones, there are collaborations with brands like Minions, Harry Potter, and more on the way. And I'm really excited about the Harry Potter because it's CG's favorite. And I know what I'm getting her for her stocking this year because she's still little. Blissy really is the gift that keeps on giving. I have better hair, better skin, and better sleep. Every night I put my head on my pillows, yes, plural, and it feels so luxurious. I really love Blissy. Blissy's been featured on Good Morning America, The View, Live with Kelly and Mark, and Dermatologist Recommended. Everybody loves them. They have over 2 million fans, and you could be next. Because you're a listener, Blissy is offering 60 nights risk-free, plus an additional 30% off when you shop at blissy.com/OCPod. That's blissy.com/OCPod and use code OCPod to get an additional 30% off. Your skin and hair will thank you. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or therapy day. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when you know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. I have found that consistent therapy has been so helpful over the years. I go, obviously, when there are challenging times, but even when things are going really well, I still don't miss it because it's a great touchstone. It empowers me to be the best version of myself. Now, if you're thinking of starting therapy, please give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/beyondoc today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/beyondoc.
Another person said on Reddit, and their name was deleted, so I think
They
maybe were
said
like,
this anonymously.
I don't want Tate to see who I am. Jimmy's a shitbag, but Tate Donovan makes him so damn likable. Oh. At least in season 1. One of my favorite moments of the show is when he punched Caleb. Caleb should have gotten punched in every single episode.
Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot I punched Caleb.
I actually was looking for the positives, and there was a lot of people. There were 2 moments that it was punching Caleb, and when Luke comes to the door, how you blocked him from getting to Marissa. There were two moments that people were like, "Yay, Jimmy!" But it was kind of hard to find. But I do think, but it's interesting because I don't know. I think this is in the beginning, in the first few episodes, you can see how heavy the adult storylines were, and it was really interesting because the Seth and Summer characters hadn't even been quite developed yet. And normally we end up focusing on what the fans want to talk about. A lot of times are the Marissa Ryan scenes, Seth and Summer scenes. But this episode really was the story about Dawn, and with a few, the anecdotal Jimmy, Julie, Riverside, all that kind of stuff on the side. So you can see how it was fun to go back and watch. Like, this is classic. And I thought this was a great episode.
I will say this was my first time watching this episode in like 6-ish years. And I was laughing out loud. And I think my favorite part of the entire episode were the 2 of you. You guys, like, Marissa, Ryan, Luke, whatever, like, drama. But you guys were like the comedic relief of the whole episode. And I loved it.
Aw.
Both of you. You're my favorite part of the entire episode. I wrote so many things down. about how funny it was. Like, Mom, your outfits in this entire episode.
Oh, I know. They're amazing. The juicy suits.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah, that's true.
And the dress, when Kirsten's like, oh, I like your dress. You're like, thanks, it's yours.
She goes, I love your dress. You do? It's yours. She's like, huh? What? What's going on here?
Yeah. And then Mom, when you say like, nobody blames you for bringing the kid into the community.
Yeah, that was great.
You're just like such like waspy mom in this. You go, her son was friends with that boy, and like take a sip of your drink and walk away.
No, this kind of was reminiscent of what I think really today. That was like the first, like, it just felt very Real Housewives, you know?
Oh, it was super Real Housewives. Mm-hmm. And I think my mom, we talked about this prior to watching it, but my favorite scene of the entire show is when you walk in, Jimmy's on the couch eating potato chips. You go, Sandy pretty much called me white trash.
She said it was from Riverside. Honey, you are from Riverside. It was his tone. Because, yes, that is one of, but also the scene where Sandy actually says, Julie, come on. I'm not mad, disappointed. I mean, you're from Riverside. It's pretty close. And I think that was, it's so weird to see how, I don't know. So this is where I think this is where that, gosh, Julie was just very, so fake. Like how she says to Kirsten, it's so perfect. Everything's wonderful. And behind it's like, how much you get for the hug. And that was that person that we talk about that I base this character on.
Oh, yeah.
I remember. Yeah. Should I say her name?
It doesn't matter now. Yeah, it doesn't matter. There's just some people that are like that in real life. But there was an interesting conversation online that people had about the idea that in this episode, Kirsten didn't want Ryan to stay. Number one, she kept saying, he has a family, but I also want to protect Seth. And the question is she the villain here for not letting Ryan stay? And how would that make her a villain? Because no, I don't think so. I think she's being totally I think it's a very understanding position to take. And Nina of the 90s on YouTube wrote, Kirsten is not a villain. She's reacting 100% realistic and the way most of us would react. Sandy sees it differently because he sees himself in Ryan. So of course he wants to save him immediately. But you forget that Kirsten isn't Sandy, and that's maybe not what she wants. So no one should force her to adopt a 16-year-old. No matter how rich they are, how big their house is, Kirsten's reacting in the most realistic way. But I understand most people who watch the show were very young and, of course, mostly take the perspective of the younger characters. Because everyone was like, how can you not let him stay? Seth wants him to stay. Everybody wants him to stay. So the story is of how Kirsten went from, I don't want a criminal in my house, to allowing him to stay. So what do you guys think about how, like, what if your husband brings home it's not a stray puppy, Sandy. Remember she said that in another episode. Bringing home this kid to live in your house.
I thought that last comment from the was perfectly worded, and because it is a huge deal. It's a crazy huge deal to invite someone else into your house and adopt them it's just outrageous. And I loved how they actually resolved it. She's like, I love you. And he's like, I know. And he says, they say something like, we're in over our heads.
Yeah, we can't return him now.
Yeah, right. There's no return policy. And we're in over our heads. And it's a good thing that we have a good relationship. It's a good thing that we love each other, because that's the only thing that is going to get you through, being in and over your head. So I thought that was kind of a beautiful way to resolve it. Because you're right. I mean, it's just crazy to open your whole house to,
Right. And I know that Josh had said the first 3 episodes are essentially like a movie, from the pilot to the burning down of the model home to this, where then he stays, and now we can move into him getting to school and start. Yeah. Because, and I can see why the show resonated. So, and people were grabbed by the first, I guess, 7 episodes, or the first 8 episodes are kind of what, like, if you nowadays it would be like the perfect 8 episodes on Netflix or something. And some people are like, don't mess with those first 8 episodes. The rest sucks. No, but there was something that hook of this kid from the outside who's going to stay with this family It really worked. It worked really well. And oh gosh, what's her name? Daphne, who played Dawn, Ryan's mother, Ashbrook. Daphne Ashbrook came in, and I felt like this. When I posted about this episode, of course, people did mention all the fun Julie, Jimmy stuff, but the thing that they posted and mentioned the most was the Dawn story, Dawn and Ryan's storyline. And I actually did have tears in that last scene. Because she's a great actor. It was written really well. Because how does a mom give up her son?
Yeah, pretty intense.
Well, I mean, that's what Jimmy does later.
Yeah, the total foreshadowing.
So,
true, yeah. And I noticed a similar sort of psychology behind it, which was, I think, kind of BS. The psychology of like, I'm actually doing them a favor by leaving them, by getting out of there.
They're better off without me.
They're better off without me. Thank you. And that is that's just not true.
No.
I mean, even if you're a parent and you've got horrible drug problems or whatever, and you're really pulling your children down, to just abandon them, I don't know. I just don't see. There is no. I don't see a scenario where a human being who has a child thinks, oh, it's better. It's narcissistic to think, oh, I'm doing a good thing by abandoning them.
The things people tell themselves to be able to sleep at night.
I had to. So Tate, somebody actually wrote this in reference to what you just said. Highfalutin on Reddit. Jimmy's the worst. He even joked about this to Marissa as she's sobbing at the lifeguard stand, begging him not to go. Jimmy says, I'm sorry I couldn't give you the life that you deserve. Although I nearly went to jail trying. Gotta give a guy credit for that. No, Jimmy, the life that your kids deserved involved being an emotionally mature, present parent.
If my father or this woman right here ever said that to me,
right?
Sorry, I can't give you the life you deserve, but I really tried.
Yeah.
No.
But why do you think it worked I bought it. I was like, because the sincerity behind Dawn, because I guess in my mind, I thought I'm going to go away and take care of myself so I can come back. But she never comes back. They always go after her to bring her back. You know what I mean? So why did I buy it this time?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why you bought it, because I didn't buy it.
No, if I had not watched the rest of the show, I thought we would never see her again.
So why did Kirsten buy it? Or did Kirsten go?
I think Kirsten thought they'd never see her again.
But Kirsten.
That's my perspective. Like, because she's like, you're the better mom. I'm leaving. So it's like she's pretty much handing Ryan off to her. Like, the way I viewed it, I didn't think Dawn was coming back. I don't think Kirsten thought she was going to come back ever.
It's because I fell for all of these people. Like somebody wrote on my Instagram, this episode, Gray Santin. This episode is one of the most beautiful. I love when Dawn talks to Kirsten and says she's going away because of Ryan. She's doing that for him because he had finally found a real mother. That scene always makes me cry. It's so deep, and it makes me realize how powerful love is. People believed it.
Yeah, that's true. People believed it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I actually really like the way Kelly sort of reacts to that line. I don't know if you remember, her face is like puzzlement, and it's emotional. She doesn't say anything, but I was struck by her reaction to that line, which is a pretty intense line to hear.
Yeah, Mom, we've talked about this, how Kelly, like, she shows a lot with just like a minor facial expression. She's done it in other episodes. Like the last one we talked about, Kelly's just so good at like showing all the feelings with like the most subtle expression.
That's being a good technical actor too. When you know how small or how close that frame is, you don't have to do a lot, but she is good at doing that. Yeah. Or whereas some of us are just like, no. Well, Kelly,
do that again.
Kelly's good. And she knows it. Kelly's good and she knows it. And I say this with all respect. Yes. No, she knows exactly what she's doing. She's a very strong actor. This is episode 3. And I think the whole Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong, Jimmy and Kirsten, there was going to be like a bigger storyline there. And And I think there still was. They still maintained some of that storyline a little bit.
Yeah, no, it was definitely like when we shot the pilot and they talked to me about the role, it was going to be this like kind of flirtation and maybe there's an affair or there's some sort of thing going on between her and I, and it's always a threat to the relationship. And I think they got in there and they were like, oh no way. We have to have two solid rocks in there, and we can't have some sort of mishigosh happening between the parents. That was just like, and so they sort of really pushed away from that. And I think they sort of like started it in the pilot and then realized that was wrong. And then they sort of ended it right here. They're like, okay, the secret is going to be the $100,000 and, let's get that resolved. And, and then I say, oh, I'm sorry. And blah, 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 blah. And then it was all over. That whole storyline of, Kirsten and Jimmy having some sort of unresolved passion for each other is just gone.
Really? Well, and because I don't think Jimmy really ever drops it. I don't think. Maybe.
Oh yeah, maybe.
If Kirsten left Sandy and went to Jimmy and was like, "I love you," Jimmy'd be like, "I love you too."
Oh yeah, absolutely.
100%.
But I think, do you think sometimes some people, and maybe Jimmy, he has real feelings for Julie, but he's never stopped loving Kirsten. I think you can do that, but.
Yeah, totally.
Well, didn't he only really marry Julie because Julie got pregnant?
Well, that's what she says later. She goes, "You married me because I got pregnant. I married you because I loved you." And she says that at one point, like when they're maybe going to get back together, when Jimmy comes back because of the reading of Caleb's will, and there's nothing there. But that there is that thing where he kisses her, like he kisses Kirsten, and then he apologizes to Sandy for kissing her when they're at the golf course. So yeah. Jimmy,
Jimmy, you're a mess.
Right. But
I'm sorry.
What was I going to say? So, but when Julie,
a likable mess, though.
A likable mess, extremely likable mess.
Because I think it was. I mean, I always thought it was funny. You're like, wait a second. You said to me, you're like, Mindy, do people say you're a bad mom? And I was like, well, no. They just say she's a bitch.
Oh no. People, when they find out you're my mother, they go, "Is she really like that in real life? Is that what your childhood was like?" And I'm like,
yeah,
yes. It was.
Oh, and our guests over in the audience, hi Josephine, Stephen, and Mary. Josephine goes and then goes for the younger sister because that he used to babysit
because he can't have the older sister.
I know that was terrible.
Keep it in the family.
But at the casino, when Julie's like, that's when she's meddling. She kind of stopped doing that stuff a little bit, or I mean, she would probably never.
You were a little sneaky.
But she goes straight to Sandy and says, thank you so much. Of course, you never know who your friends are until you're really in need. And goes to Jimmy and says, guess what? Sandy didn't know about this money. And then the argument between Sandy and Kirsten, where she's like, it's my money. And he's like, it's more than I make in a year. And Jimmy didn't want to tell you. And he's like, well, what's your excuse? And welcome to my neuroses for the past hour. There is this moment.
Yeah.
Ian, oh, by the way, I meant to say that Ian Twington directed this right from the beginning. Ian was with us.
Yeah.
And that whole casino thing was just directed.
And
yeah.
I was like, this music makes it so intense.
It does, because it's all that going on. And there's just this look with Sandy going, like, all of a sudden you think, what is happening behind the scenes that I had no idea about, like what's going on? But like you said, by the end, she brings Ryan home and she says, are we okay? And I guess it doesn't take much for your mind to go off and picture the worst between Kirsten and Sandy.
Well, yeah, I want to ask, in that scene, Kirsten and Sandy are having their like little argument outside, and Jamie walks out and he's like, I'm so sorry. And Sandy goes, I'm trying to have a conversation with my wife. Like, but Jimmy and Sandy were friends.
They become better.
Right? Do you think Sandy ever had it like in the back of his mind? Like, Jimmy could try and steal my wife still. Like, was he always like on alert about that? Or from that comment, like, I'm trying to have a conversation with my wife. I was like, ooh.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, he says in that line where he's like, welcome to the neuroses I've had. He only says for the past hour.
So yeah.
I guess it.
But has it been the last?
think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he knows that they had a thing. They were all at Berkeley together, weren't they?
No, I think Jimmy were high
They
school.
were high school. That's what it was.
Yeah, Jimmy didn't go to Berkeley.
No. What am I talking about?
He went to Cal State Northridge or San Diego
No.
State.
He
went somewhere with he was more.
You went to Pierce for 2 years and
Where he
then
could
transferred
golf.
somewhere.
Yeah,
You went to Pierce and Woodland Hills by the golf courses.
No, that's what it is.
Awesome.
Somebody said they were going to go to USC together, and then Kirsten last minute changed to Berkeley, and Caleb was pissed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Wow, you got a good memory.
No,
Yeah.
this is Josephine.
SC, that makes sense. Yeah.
That's one of our fans commenting. I don't know this.
No, I remember all this.
Awesome.
Yes. So
Good for her.
again, this episode just really, really resonated with people.
I have a comment really quick. I meant to say this when you were talking about the last podcast. Mom, your spray tan girl,
It was bad.
you looked like neon orange.
Okay. So
Maybe that was that was what they were going for.
And then Sandy was saying he looked like bronze.
So can this? I'm sure I know that we did say this a little bit in the beginning, but there's a behind the scenes memory, and that this is what was happening. The directive from above, from Stephanie, from Josh, from everyone, is that was also that orange early 2000s look, that spray tan thing. And as you know me, I don't go in the sun. I stay out of the sun. And they wanted me tan, so I would go into those booths where you get that spray tan and you'd smell awful. Your whole body would smell like BO the next day. Even if you took a shower, it would smell terrible. And so they were trying to make everyone look like that. And then somebody I remembered this episode in particular because we did kind of an elaborate makeup. Somebody called me a drag queen in this episode. And that's not the first time I've been mistaken for a drag queen, actually.
Oh, you've been mistaken for a drag queen in real life.
Yeah, I was in West Hollywood at I think an arena at a boy, and I was all elaborate, and this guy thought I was a man, anyway, or a drag queen.
Well, Tate, did they bronze you up? Do you remember?
No, I felt as though it was funny you bring that up because I looked at that scene with the potato chips watching basketball. I'm like, geez, Jimmy should be in the sun. I was a little pale.
Well, yeah, standing next to Julie, who's neon orange.
That's true. Yeah.
You look like paper.
We also had different lighting, and it was that bright, and it was orange. And I noticed in that particular one, I remember seeing it and saying, "I like you guys." And the makeup was too heavy for me, and I complained. And you can see as the show goes on, things get a little bit more.
Well, you said they're trying to make you look older because you actually had a 3-year-old daughter when your daughter on the show is 16, and hence drag queen.
Thank you. Oh man, what other parts of this episode should we talk about? Any other scenes that
I'd like to talk about? One of my favorite little bits was seeing guest starring Melinda Clark. That is fantastic. I mean, I said this a million times, but one of my favorite showbiz stories is, you having one line in the pilot and becoming one of the most important characters on the show years later. It's like, it's so great. And it's just such a testament to what a great actress you are and how fun you were to work with. And the writers, everybody knew, oh my God, we got to give her more shit. Let's give her more shit. She's so good. She's so good.
Give her the wild stuff.
Yeah, give her the crazy shit that nobody else wants to do.
Well, I think there was something to be said for, the somebody's got to fill that kind of telenovela, soap opera, like, in a dramedy, I guess. But it's my understanding that it's very originally Julie and Jimmy were going to get divorced, and maybe Julie was just going to go away because of what was going on.
Yeah, that's what I was told.
But when the dailies came back from the pilot, we started negotiating to be a series regular. Right away.
Awesome.
And Rachel and I and I guess Chris Carmack, he wasn't a regular, but
he was a guest star, right?
I think so. And then they started offering, and all of a sudden they went, whoa, hold on. We started the negotiations, and then they put a pause on it. They said, it's not happening yet. You're going to have to wait. So we had to wait until the back.
It was like the 8th episode, right?
So you get like the 11th episode.
Back
when the show finally gets picked up for that Pack 9. So because they were like, oh yeah, no, we need those characters.
Except for it got picked up for like a back 14
right. The back
like
9
that,
is the traditional
crazy.
to make 22, but it was like it would call it more like the back extra 14 episodes or something.
I have a comment. We have things we want to talk about. Sandy, he said something in this episode that it just makes me like, this is the Newpsies are like so OC, waspy mom. It's like when he's walking out, he's like, bye ladies. Oh. He's like, I'm going to go rescue someone, maybe a black kid or an Asian kid. And all of their faces are like.
Did you know that that's a Peter improv?
No way.
Oh, wow. That's so good.
That's incredible. I just think given the people he's saying it to is like.
Right. No, he improv'd it and they kept it because if there's any one line that kind of sums up really what message we were trying to make, it really sums up Peter, Sandy, the character of Sandy, this world that exists, this very homogenized world that exists in OC. So, I mean, obviously, I don't know.
That made me laugh out loud.
Speaking of that, though, that was great. That was such a great moment. But one thing that kind of bummed me out was that the character of the maid, I've forgotten her name.
Rosa. Where does she go? Right.
And they had such a great opportunity there to include not only the Hispanic, viewpoint or just storylines. And even that scene where there's this mom who's, Ryan's mom, who's like this, troubled character and la 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 la, and then there's Rosa serving her food, and I just feel as though they really dropped the boat. Like I remember thinking in the pilot, watching the pilot, I was like, "Oh, the Rosa character is awesome. This is going to be so good," because there is that crazy tension, especially in the OC, between these wealthy white people and the Hispanic community, and yet they need each other so much, and they just sort of let her drift off. And,
well, have you seen Gossip Girl?
Yeah.
In Gossip Girl, they do that with the maid for the Waldorf house, Dorota. They make her like this huge character, and it's phenomenal. It's so funny, and I think that would have been perfect with Rosa.
They directed on Gossip Girl, CG.
Yeah, that actress was great who played.
Oh, you directed on Gossip Girl?
Yeah, I directed a couple of them. Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was fun.
I know most of your other, what is it called?
Filmography.
She called it a discography.
Digital. Both are totally.
Well, and I think what's interesting is we didn't go into any race relation things. It was shied away from in Orange County, which is kind of what show actually really got into that a little bit more. I think it's Desperate Housewives. And then I remember because of Desperate Housewives, and I remember reading a script about a show and it was based on exactly what you're talking about, the people that employed people like Rosa and how they and I don't know if that show ever got made, but I remember reading a pilot just like what you described.
I just worked with Eva Longoria, speaking of Desperate Housewives.
You just worked.
And I just worked with her, and she is absolutely one of the most fun, fantastic people I've ever worked with. Have you ever worked with her?
No.
She seems like it.
She's amazing. She is so great. Oh my God. I couldn't believe how great she was.
Yeah. What did you work with her on?
I directed Nespresso commercials, a bunch of Nespresso commercials, and she's in them.
That's awesome.
It was so much fun. We had such a good time. And she was so game and so good. I
love that.
I didn't know what to expect. And oh my God, crazy.
Yeah. So Steven just said Devious Maids was Mark Cherry's show after Desperate Housewives. Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Devious
See,
this is why we have the people in the comments to tell us things that we don't know.
This.
Thank you, people.
Well, thanks, Steven.
we needed this all along. Yeah. Yeah. So what else have you been doing, Tate? Usually I do a little segment called Beyond the OC. Let's talk about anything but the
Yeah.
OC. But since we segued into what you've been doing, so you're directing. That's great. For a while there, you were saying that it was hard to get some directing. You were like, unless you're a woman, it was hard to get directing. Right?
Oh, well, that's not true. But it was hard for me to get directing. But that's not. What else? I've acted in a couple of pretty cool little independent movies. One is called Steady, which I play this crazy character who it's kind of based on a real life guy who he's a boxing coach, but he's got Parkinson's, and he's sort of got Parkinson's, they think, through boxing, and yet teaching boxing is really good for Parkinson's patients. And so it's this really sweet, and it was very, I have to say, it was to play somebody who's got, bad case of Parkinson's. It was pretty intense.
Challenging.
It was really like, to do the research for it was like, it's kind of jaw dropping. And it was, every day to put yourself in those shoes was physically really demanding, and yet really, really rewarding. And it was a lot of fun. So it's a movie called Steady. It's all these things are very small, low budget films, and God knows if anyone will ever see them, hopefully in a festival somewhere. And then I did another great true story about, it was written, directed by this great woman who is a donor. Her dad, she didn't know who her dad was. It was like a sperm donor. And she was raised by a single mom. And it's her, she just goes out and tries to find her biological dad. And she finds him. And it's this great true story of how they end up having this great relationship. And, I was expecting, when I first read the script, I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be, she's going to find the dad and he's going to be miserable in a nightmare. And, she's going to wish that she never, I don't know, that's sort of what you expect from a story like that. But it turns out he's a great guy, and they become really close, and it was a really sweet script, really sweet. And I've totally spaced on the name of it. Isn't that terrible? That's I'm getting to
Jimmy.
that age. Yeah,
Forgetting
right?
the
Jimmy.
important things.
Classic Jimmy.
Classic
Yeah.
Jimmy.
No, it's got a funny title. Rhythm is something or other.
Yeah,
Hold on a second.
you find it
I'll look up
in your call sheets.
Speaking of
my call sheets.
filmography,
someone
just commented and said CG has recommended Memphis Belle, and it's on my list.
Oh, yeah.
Ever since you came on our last podcast, I think I said this to you, I'm not like a war, army kind of movie person. That movie made me sob.
Oh, wow.
I sobbed. That movie was nuts.
That's so
and
sweet. That's great.
like, anytime I've talked about it on this podcast, and I recommend that movie. And
by the way, the name of the movie is Rhythm is a Dancer. That's
okay.
Rhythm is a Dancer.
Okay. And number two is I've got a question for you.
Okay.
What do you think made you sob? I'm curious. Because it has a happy ending, kind of, and
I think it was the humanity and the camaraderie between the whole team. Like they're not just people on a mission, like they're a family, and just the way they care about each other. And and I think the part that was so close to making me cry was when they were going to toss the guy out, and then they didn't. It's just the relationship, because you don't get to see a lot of relationships between like grown men and how they love each other and things like that. I feel like that's kind of frowned upon because men are strong and not supposed to cry and all these things. But in that movie, you really see like the rough human experience, especially as like a man. Like, yes, I'm in the Air Force and I'm strong, but like this is terrifying and I could lose my life. And they just like are saving each other. And it's just it's very touching, like how much they all love each other.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I like that interpretation of that movie. That's awesome.
I think we talked, and if anybody's listening, but no, for our listeners, CG and I did a podcast just before the strike happened called Bye Bitches. And we talked about people's films that they've done. We did Love Potion #9, and we talked about Memphis Belle. And if you want to listen to that podcast, just look up Bye Bitches. And actually, it's on our YouTube channel as well, if you guys want to hear that.
And Tate talks about making out with my mom on that one. I remember that.
We
I'll
always
always
talk
remember
about
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always have. I was waiting for you to bring it up. I was like, when are you going to bring it up this time? You've been holding it in.
I've been texting your mom on the side saying, when can we bring it up? Is it okay to bring it up?
Is she going to get mad?
My wife's probably not going to listen to this. I think we should bring it up.
Well, and in that note, I have a voicemail that somebody asks a question that we can play here for Tate.
Hey, Melinda. My name is Lindsay. I'm from Alabama, and this message is for Tate. Tate, I was wondering, you played such a big part in the OC. You're actually my favorite character. I was wondering what season is your favorite? Thank you so much. Y'all have a good day.
Awesome accent, huh? Jesus.
Simple
Fantastic.
question, but I thought that was...
So she wants to know what season of the OC?
So
well,
the second
I think
she
it was
said,
the third season.
The second she said you're her favorite character, you shut off. You didn't even listen to the question.
I was like, all right, she hasn't watched the full show.
Did you watch the whole show? Because you know what's so weird? It just feels like you were there way longer than you were. Because of course I do some prep, and I read an interview with you that you said I was only there basically for the first season. And I was like, you were? And I was like, no, you came.
Yeah, that was it.
And you came back for the second season.
You were in the second season quite a bit with the whole Haley thing. No,
I was there for 7 episodes.
Okay. That I guess that so it's more like 7 episodes.
7 episodes, and then you feel as though I was around because I ended up directing, and I shadowed a lot, and you guys couldn't get rid of me.
Well, also Marissa and Caitlin talk about you. They're like, oh, we're gonna call Dad.
Oh, really?
When Marissa's leaving before she dies, she's gonna go on the boat with you, and all these things.
Oh, I see.
So you were present in their lives, just not physically.
Okay, yeah,
Did you
great.
have a favorite?
So your favorite season is the one you're not in.
My bank account could have helped me being present physically in their lives much more than
so
emotionally.
Tate, Willa Holland, Autumn Reeser, myself, we were on the picket line at Fox for the strike last year, and we realized that you never had you never met Willa Holland, who played your daughter?
No,
until
I never had.
We were on the picket line last summer.
Yeah, so funny. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So did you have a favorite? I mean, obviously your favorite season would be
the one you're not in.
It's the first season, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. She's like, yeah.
We actually have a fun little email.
We do. Let's get into this. So I did ask Tate his permission just ahead of time. So we have an email confession from a fan for Tate. So we had it, and I believe we may have read it on the Welcome to the OC Bitches, but it said, "Hi, bitches. This is from Jessica Murphy. I'm not sure if Tate will appear on the podcast before the finale, but I have a confession. I was the caller on Watch What Happens Live that asked who the biggest diva was a few years back. Little did I know that would cause such a stir amongst the cast, and asked by the biggest fan nonetheless. It was picked up on Radar Online and replayed when Adam was promoting a project on Bravo 2. Additionally, I'm still blushing after all these years as I'm listening to an ancillary fan podcast, and this incident was also brought up. The sad part, the producer at Watch What Happens Live prompted me to ask the question. I'm sure that's no surprise to you both. Wish I could recall what my initial question was when I called in. Please tell Tate sorry. Thanks, Jess, not Sathers, from Chicago."
I guess. What was that? That was when I went on Watch What Happens Lives, and I called the kids what did I call them? Dingbats, or I don't know. I called them something derogatory.
You were like, yeah, you said little assholes or dingbats or something. No, Rachel called herself a little asshole. That's what it was.
Oh, okay.
When she said, "I'm sorry if we were little assholes." I keep getting these when you did the podcast the first time.
Right.
And then they played. But I guess what's interesting is this: a fan calls in to ask a sweet question, and the producer says, "Ask this question," just to get And I think that's what that show is about.
Yeah. Well, that's a producer's job.
Right. And then they replay it.
Get scintillating television.
Yeah, and they replay it for Adam 3 weeks later, and he was like, "Huh? What? It wasn't fun, I guess, to hear or something." But it's all good now. It's all good now. I thought it would be.
It's all good now. Yeah.
Messy.
Yeah, but she did write, "Hi, Melinda. Please tell Tate I am sorry. The OC's biggest fan had to ask a question that caused so much swirl amongst the cast and fans. It's still being discussed 11 years later." Jess.
Tate, do you think you'll ever forgive her?
I don't know. I've got to talk to my priest/therapist about it.
Do some soul searching to find it in you to apologize or accept the apology.
No, I think it's an excellent question, and
It is. It's this big.
it's
The biggest diva was Melinda.
Did you end up reading the book at all?
No, I didn't. I did the classic actor thing. First of all, I wasn't really interviewed for the book. I was a little bit. The author didn't interview me, like one of his assistants did, and so I just sort of thumbed through it and looked for Tate Donovan or Jimmy Cooper, and just, and I saw a couple of things, and then I was like, okay, I'm out.
I don't care about what these other people have to say.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
what did you think of the book? What did you think?
Well, for me, it was, I had, from the very, very, very beginning, it was kind of the piece that was missing for me, because I loved being on the show. It was like, I mean, people, I totally understand, like, the big story behind all this is that the kids were, after the first season, because they're getting inundated with offers of big films and Adam's turning stuff down and everything. I was at this place where I've got a 3-year-old or 7-year-old at home when the show ended. And it was just perfect for me. I didn't even realize how much it had been modeled to me. Like my dad, who was on a soap for 40 years, that he'd go to work for a few days a week, and then he was home for his kids. And I realized, like, that was what was modeled so that he could be home. And that was why I was like, I can be the mom. Being a mom and on a show in Los Angeles, you don't realize it. But I knew that it was great.
Amazing.
So when it ended, I just the inquisitive part of me wanted to know what happened, what was behind the scenes. And this book was fascinating for me to hear what was going on at Fox, what was going on with Peter Gore, just Gail Berman, just all of the little behind the scenes stuff that you and I would never know about in the writer's room and everything. So I knew there was stuff going on, but this actually explained it. There's still stuff that's very vague that the public will never know, but it's kind of, you read between the lines of what's going on. But it was fascinating to me. I read it very quickly. I actually thought it was really fascinating.
Oh, good.
Especially because I got thrown into doing this podcast and we were exploring it all. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Did it change, like learning all that stuff? Did it sort of change your memory of the show, or how you look at it now?
What's really interesting, and I think what's really important, I think it's an important book even for life. And if you're in production or or just in life, that you can look back. I had no idea that Josh and Stephanie both considered the show a failure when they finished, because they didn't get to 100 episodes, because people were upset. That I had no idea. I guess you were aware, but I didn't realize that Josh was scared to show up on set in the 3rd season, and knowing that the storylines weren't so great. I mean, I remember people were unhappy with the scripts, and it got to a point where you could feel the energy on set. Some days were like, "Ooh, don't want to be around that person," or you could feel the negative energy on set. But there's a lot of reflection that comes with human beings being on a journey, reflecting back, forgiving yourself, realizing the show,
Mom's TED Talk,
realizing the show was more of a much more successful than they thought it was, and saying, and Stephanie talks very much about how we were told to act a certain way as producers to stay out of people's business or something. She said, I won't do that now. I will go to somebody and ask them directly and care more about what's going on in their lives. And anyway, so I thought it was just, I don't know. I thought it was, for me personally, I learned a lot. And just, there was so much, because if I'd had this book when we did the podcast, it would have been even much more to talk about. So now it's like, oh yeah, I've got a little Bible I can refer to. But no, I think I think it's there's some great lessons, and the journey is, we're all about figuring out what we're like, what have we learned from our journey? Because I used to be so subjective and critical of our journey, of my journey.
Tate, this happens every podcast. She goes on a little rant about life and journeys and healing. And I like to call it Mom's TED Talks because she does it every single time we record.
Well,
every single time it comes up at some point.
This is the danger of having your child be on a podcast with you, because they just naturally just poke through the holes and just burst the balloons and
I enjoy it.
It's kind of wonderful.
Well, I'm going to ask you, Tate, don't you get to a point where you say, I'm going to reflect back, and don't you do that at this age?
Oh gosh, yeah, like nostalgia, you mean? Absolutely. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's terrible. Yeah.
Well, just like, what have I learned, or who am I, or stop, because or like, God, I used to be so negative and cynical, and it doesn't serve anything.
Yeah.
We need to get Autumn back on here.
We did a really
No, I mean, if only we could, go back and do that show again, or, or so many jobs, so many decisions, if only you could go back and, oh gosh, I would never do it that way. And, everyone learns the hard way. It's really tough. It's very tough, but it's also,
but that's how you learn,
beautiful.
by going through the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Too.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
and being a parent
totally.
is like, CG said something to me the other day that she was like, I had a light bulb moment. I
like to call it a come to Jesus moment.
She said,
which was,
I said, I have no resentment towards anything like that my parents did to me when I was a kid growing up, because parents are living life for the first time too, and they're just doing their best.
Wow.
Parents aren't perfect.
You're amazing. You're a fantastic kid.
She's learning stuff that I learned at 50.
Yeah, I'm doing all this work myself that she did a couple years ago. 30-year difference.
Well, it was always such a joy. That was one of the best things about getting together and watching the episodes at McGee's house, because you would be there, and it was just so hilarious to have like a 3-year-old running around while Josh was upstairs losing his mind in this chat rooms, and we were all just like down there, like trying to figure it out. We thought it was great. It was like such a funny combination of, nobody knew the show was going to be successful, and it was always wonderful to have you around, because you were just like such a cute, fun source of laughter and energy and grounding.
I'll never forget. Do you remember McGee's girlfriend, Robin Anton, who created the Pussycat Dolls? She goes, "Yes, Melinda, CG made me take her to the bathroom, and she was like, is it okay that I help wipe her?" And I was like, it's fine. She was like mortified. She was like, now wipe. Oh.
You were pretty good. You were such a good kid.
She only cried if she was.
Wow.
Guys, stop.
Hungry or tired.
Stop.
No, that's true. I don't know why you turned out to be such a backstabbing daughter, because you were
such
a great
an
kid.
asshole to my mother.
Right. No, listen, I think it's so great that you guys are doing this together. That's so sweet. It's so sweet to have a mother and daughter, and you're both adults, and now you're still, obviously friends and love each other and respect each other. That's awesome. Not every, parent has that with their kids.
And I'm the only one you got, Mom.
I know.
So cherish
I only
it.
got the one. I only got the one. Yeah. Well, guys, I think hopefully we redeemed ourselves talking about the episode that was The Gamble.
I feel like we still didn't really talk about it.
We did. We talked about it
a little bit. We
talked about the important parts. The gamble was, obviously people are gambling, but the gamble is we're going to gamble.
Ryan's
That's
the gamble.
The big gamble. The big risk.
The big risk. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to check my Instagram stories and posts at the Melinda Clark, as well as our weekly Reddit thread. Sometimes I do it. Sorry, I didn't do it last week. for what episode we're covering next. Will it be one of your favorites? Do you want to join us on the pod? If so, please go to speakpipe.com/OCBitch or email us at beyondtheocpodcast@gmail.com to let us know why and what makes it your favorite. Do you have a favorite line, favorite scene? We might play your voicemail on the show or ask you to come on live to discuss. If you'd like to watch the podcast, check it out on the Beyond the OC YouTube channel. You can leave comments there too.
And if you want to be a part of the conversation, join us on Patreon to get episodes early and ad-free, and to discuss the previous week's episode live on Zoom with some of our guests. Tate will be there today. You can also watch our live recordings and leave little comments. And join us every other week. The next episode we will be discussing is number 38 in the countdown, season 3, episode 4, The Last Waltz.
And Tate,
do you want to join in with us on our sign off?
I'm never asking you again. Thank you so much for doing this.
Tastes like
that's either a good thing or a bad thing. I'm never asking him again.
Every time I'm like, Tate, I'm still doing this podcast stuff. Will you come?
Please.
Anytime. I love talking to you guys. You're awesome.
Oh man. And that being said, we're gonna say bye.
Bye, bitches.
Bye, bitches.